Sophie's legs pumped harder as she closed the distance to the bikers. She could feel Brett gaining on her, his presence like ice down her spine. The bikers looked up as she approached, their conversation stopping mid-sentence. A tall man with gray hair and weathered features stepped forward, his hand already raising in a gesture that seemed protective rather than dismissive. "Please," Sophie gasped, stumbling to a stop in their circle. "Please help me. He has been following me for weeks. He would not stop. I am scared." She did not have to point. Brett Carson slowed to a walk about 20 feet away, his face shifting from determination to confusion as he realized Sophie had found protection. He was in his early 20s, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt that made him look harmless to anyone who had not experienced his relentless pursuit. But Sophie had seen the darkness behind his pleasant exterior, the way his smile never reached his eyes. The gray-haired biker moved to stand between Sophie and Brett, and the other bikers instinctively formed a wall around her. A woman with short blonde hair and kind eyes put a gentle hand on Sophie's shoulder. "You're safe now, honey," she said softly. "Nobody's going to hurt you." "Sophie, I just want to talk," Brett called out, stopping his approach but not retreating. His voice carried that same false friendliness that made Sophie's skin crawl. "You are being dramatic. These people don't need to be involved." Orchestrated narrative expansion for confrontation and resolution scene. I need to continue with the bikers confronting Brett, calling police, and establishing Sophie's safety. Need to hit around 500 words for this chapter. Currently at about 300 words, so I need about 200 more. "The young lady seems pretty clear that she does not want to talk to you," the gray-haired man said, his voice carrying authority that did not need volume to be effective. "I think you should move along before we call the police." "This is none of your business." Brett's mask slipped slightly, anger flashing across his features. "She is overreacting. I go to her school. We are friends." "We are not friends." Sophie's voice shook but held firm. "I told you to leave me alone. I told you 100 times. You follow me everywhere. You wait outside my house. You scare me." A younger biker with a dark beard pulled out his phone. "I am calling the cops right now. You can explain to them how you are friends while you were chasing a terrified kid down the street." Brett's face reddened. For a moment, Sophie thought he might charge forward anyway, but the wall of bikers did not budge. They stood calm and ready, projecting a strength that made Brett's threats seem empty. After a long tense moment, he took a step back. "This is not over, Sophie," Brett said, trying to sound threatening, but his voice wavered. "Yeah, it is," the gray-haired biker replied. "Police are on their way. You can wait here and explain yourself, or you can leave and they will find you anyway. Your choice, but you need to make it now." Brett turned and walked away quickly, not quite running but close. Two of the bikers immediately followed him at a distance, keeping eyes on him until he disappeared around a corner. The gray-haired man turned to Sophie with a gentle smile that transformed his tough exterior. "I am Tom Mitchell, president of the Guardians Motorcycle Club," he said. "You did the right thing asking for help. Let us get you somewhere safe and warm while we wait for the police." Tom guided Sophie toward Bernie's diner while the blonde woman, who introduced herself as Rachel Bennett, kept a supportive arm around the shaking teenager. The other bikers maintained their protective formation, scanning the street for any sign of Brett's return. Inside the warm diner, the smell of coffee and burgers helped ground Sophie back in reality after the nightmare chase. Carol Anderson, the diner owner with silver hair pulled into a neat bun, took one look at Sophie's tear-stained face and immediately poured a hot chocolate without being asked. She set it down on a corner booth table with a gentle pat on Sophie's hand. "On the house, sweetheart," Carol said. "You are safe here." Rachel slid into the booth across from Sophie while Tom spoke with the other bikers near the entrance. Through the window, Sophie could see them positioned strategically, watching all approaches to the diner. The level of care from these strangers made something tight in Sophie's chest begin to loosen. "Can you tell us what has been happening?" Rachel asked gently. "Take your time. There is no rush." Sophie wrapped her cold hands around the warm mug and the story spilled out. How Brett started appearing at her high school 3 weeks ago, claiming he wanted to be friends. How he always seemed to know where she would be. The increasingly uncomfortable messages on social media. The photos he took of her without permission. The way adults kept telling her to give him a chance or not overreact when she tried to report his behavior. I told my parents, Sophie's voice cracked. They said we needed proof before going to the police. They said maybe he just had a crush and did not know how to express it properly. But it did not feel like a crush. It felt wrong. It felt dangerous. Tom returned to the booth with a notepad, his expression serious but kind. The police are 5 minutes out. We got 2 of our guys following Brett at a safe distance to see where he goes. Did you ever tell him directly to leave you alone? So many times, Sophie nodded. I blocked him on everything, but he just made new accounts. I told him at school. I told him at the coffee shop. He acts like he does not hear me, or like I am playing hard to get. A younger biker named Jake Peterson joined them, his phone in hand. I got video of him chasing her down the street. Clear as day. And Tom's right, the cops are pulling up now. 2 Nashville police officers entered the diner, and Tom stood to greet them. Officer Maria Santos and Officer James Cooper listened carefully as Sophie, with Rachel's supportive presence beside her, recounted everything. They took notes, examined Jake's video, and their expressions grew increasingly serious. This is stalking, Officer Santos said firmly. And given your age and his persistent behavior, we are treating this seriously. We have units looking for him now. Sophie, you did exactly the right thing by getting help. These folks saved me, Sophie gestured to the bikers. I did not know what else to do. Officer Cooper smiled at Tom. The Guardians have a good reputation in this community. You did right by her, Tom. As the officers continued documenting everything, Rachel took Sophie's hand across the table. We are going to make sure you stay safe, okay? This does not end tonight. We will be here for you. Sophie felt tears spring to her eyes again, but this time from gratitude rather than fear. Why are you being so nice to me? You do not even know me. Because someone should have protected you weeks ago, Tom said quietly. And because it is the right thing to do. Simple as that. Officer Santos made a call and nodded with satisfaction. We found him. Units picked up Brett Carson 2 blocks from here. He is being brought in for questioning. She turned to Sophie with a reassuring smile. We need to call your parents now. Can you give me their number? Sophie rattled off her mother's cell phone, and within minutes, her parents were on their way. The officers stayed to continue taking statements from the bikers who witnessed the chase. Carol refilled coffee cups and brought Sophie a piece of warm apple pie, refusing payment from anyone. Rachel stayed close to Sophie, letting the girl process everything at her own pace. The other Guardians members took turns coming by the booth to introduce themselves, offering words of support that felt genuine rather than obligatory. There was Mike Brennan, a mechanic who promised to teach Sophie basic motorcycle safety. Jennifer Hayes, a nurse who gave Sophie her personal number in case she ever needed medical help or just someone to talk to. Each person added another layer of safety around Sophie, transforming her from a victim into someone protected by an unexpected family. I cannot believe this is happening, Sophie said quietly, taking a small bite of pie. I mean, I am grateful, so grateful. But why did it take running to strangers for anyone to really help me? Why did the adults at school keep saying I was overreacting? Rachel's jaw tightened. Because too many people want to believe predators look like monsters instead of regular people. Because they do not want to deal with uncomfortable situations. Because they fail kids like you every single day. She softened her tone. But you did not fail yourself. You trusted your instincts and you asked for help. That takes real courage. Tom rejoined them after finishing with the police. Sophie, Rachel, and I were talking. The Guardians run community outreach programs. We would like to create an escort system for you, at least until the legal stuff gets settled. Someone to walk you to your car after school. Someone to be present if you ever feel unsafe. Would that be okay with you and your parents? You would do that? Sophie's eyes widened. That seems like so much trouble. It is not trouble, Tom assured her. It is what community is supposed to be. Watching out for each other, especially our young people. You should not have to be scared going about your normal life. The diner door burst open and a woman with Sophie's same auburn hair rushed in, followed by a tall man in a business suit. Helen and Richard Fletcher looked around frantically until they spotted their daughter. Helen nearly ran to the booth, pulling Sophie into a tight embrace. "Oh, baby, oh, thank God you are okay," Helen sobbed into Sophie's ear. "The police told us what happened. I am so sorry. I am so sorry we did not do more sooner." Richard Fletcher shook hands with Tom, then Rachel, his own hands trembling. "Thank you. Thank you for protecting our daughter. We should have taken this more seriously from the beginning." "What matters is she is safe now," Tom said. "And we are going to make sure she stays that way." Officer Santos approached the family. "Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher, we need to take an official statement from Sophie at the station. You can accompany her, of course. Brett Carson is being processed now for stalking charges. With the evidence we have, including video footage, we are confident we can hold him. Can they come?" Sophie looked at Rachel and Tom. "Please. I feel safer with them there." Helen looked at the bikers with tear-filled eyes. "Of course they can come. You saved our daughter. You are welcome anywhere we are." At the police station, Sophie gave a detailed statement with her parents and Rachel present. Officer Santos handled the interview with careful sensitivity, never making Sophie feel blamed or doubted. The video evidence from Jake, combined with screenshots of Brett's persistent messages that Sophie had saved, painted a clear picture of escalating stalking behavior. "Sophie, you did everything right by documenting this," Officer Santos said. "Many victims delete messages because seeing them is painful, but you kept the evidence. That is going to help us build a strong case." During the interview, Officer Cooper brought in additional information that made everyone's blood run cold. Brett Carson had been investigated for similar behavior at his college campus 2 years earlier. A restraining order had been filed against him by another young woman, though no criminal charges had stuck at the time due to lack of evidence. "He has done this before," Sophie whispered, looking at her parents. "I am not his first victim." "No, but you are going to be his last," Officer Santos said firmly. "We have enough to charge him with aggravated stalking. Given the age difference between you and him and his prior history, the district attorney is taking this very seriously." Richard Fletcher stood abruptly, pacing the small interview room. "We should have gone to the police immediately. Helen, we should have believed her the first time she told us she felt unsafe." "Dad, it is okay," Sophie started, but her father shook his head. "No, it is not okay. We told ourselves we were being rational and cautious, gathering evidence. But really we were just scared of causing a scene or making things awkward. We put our comfort over your safety, and I will never forgive myself for that." Helen reached for her husband's hand. "We failed you, Sophie. These people, these strangers, did what we should have done from day one. They believed you immediately and took action." Tom, who had been waiting in the lobby, was brought in at Sophie's request. He listened to the new information about Brett's history and nodded thoughtfully. "Mrs. and Mr. Fletcher, what is done, Tom said. "What matters now is moving forward and keeping Sophie safe. The Guardians would like to formally offer our protection and support. We run youth outreach programs in Nashville, and we want to expand them to include safety escorts and education." "We accept," Richard said immediately. "Anything you offer, we accept with gratitude. We cannot repay you for what you have done." "We do not want repayment," Rachel said, entering the room. "We want Sophie to feel safe and empowered. That is worth more than money." Officer Santos concluded the interview and explained the next steps. Brett would be arraigned in the morning. A temporary restraining order was being issued immediately. The investigation would continue to build the strongest possible case. Sophie and her family could go home, but officers would do periodic drive-bys of their house throughout the night for extra security. As they left the station, Sophie turned to Tom and Rachel. "I do not know how to thank you. You changed everything tonight." "You thank us by living your life without fear," Tom smiled, "and by accepting our help moving forward. We are in this with you now, Sophie. That is what the Guardians do. We protect." The Fletcher family drove home with Tom and Rachel following on their motorcycles, two unexpected guardian angels who appeared exactly when they were needed most. News of Sophie's rescue spread through Nashville like ripples in a pond. The next morning, local news stations picked up the story, "Motorcycle Club saves teenager from stalker." By afternoon, Sophie's phone buzzed with messages from classmates, teachers, and even people she did not know, all expressing support and outrage that she had been dealing with this alone. At Hillside High School, Principal Margaret Patterson called an emergency assembly. She stood at the podium, her usual stern expression replaced with something vulnerable and apologetic. Yesterday, one of our students, Sophie Fletcher, experienced something that should never happen to any young person, she began. She reported feeling unsafe, and our response was inadequate. I take full responsibility for that failure. We are implementing new protocols immediately for reporting stalking and harassment. We will believe students first and act swiftly. Sophie sat in the auditorium surrounded by friends who hugged her tight, whispering their own stories of times they felt unsafe and were not believed. The assembly became an unexpected moment of community healing as Principal Patterson invited Tom Mitchell to speak. Tom stood at the front in his Guardian's leather jacket, an unlikely figure in a high school auditorium, but his presence commanded respect. I am not here to lecture you about safety, Tom said. I am here to tell you that you deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be believed when you say something is wrong. And you deserve a community that shows up for you, like mine showed up for Sophie. He announced the Guardian's new Safe Ride Home program. Any student who felt unsafe could call a hotline, and a Guardian would escort them home, no questions asked. The program would be free, funded by the club and community donations. The auditorium erupted in applause. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe so you do not miss how this community continues to come together for Sophie. Meanwhile, at Boney's Diner, Carol Anderson organized a community meeting. Business owners from Broadway Street filled the diner, sitting shoulder to shoulder, united in purpose. Carol stood at the counter, addressing the crowd. We all heard what happened to Sophie Fletcher. What if she had not found Tom and his people? What if she had been alone? Carol's voice shook with emotion. We need to be better neighbors. We need to watch out for each other. The meeting resulted in the creation of the Broadway Watch, a community network where business owners committed to being safe havens. Bright blue stickers in windows would identify participating businesses. Anyone feeling unsafe could enter and receive immediate help. Mike Brennan, the Guardian mechanic, volunteered to install security cameras outside participating businesses at cost. Jennifer Hayes organized first aid and crisis response training. The community that had simply existed side by side was transforming into a family that actively protected its members. At the Fletcher home, Helen and Richard sat with Sophie at the kitchen table, reviewing safety plans. Rachel Bennett stopped by with information packets about the Guardian's programs and a schedule for Sophie's escorts to school. This feels like too much, Sophie said, though gratitude shone in her eyes. All these people doing all this for me. They are not doing it just for you, Rachel explained gently. They are doing it for every person who has ever felt unsafe and alone. You gave them a chance to be part of something meaningful. That is a gift, Sophie. A knock at the door brought an unexpected visitor. Diane Carson, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, stood on the porch holding a bouquet of flowers. Helen stiffened when she saw the name on the visitor's driver's license through the window camera, but Sophie touched her mother's arm. Let her in, Mom. Please. Diane Carson stepped into the Fletcher living room with the hesitant movements of someone expecting to be turned away. Her hands twisted around the flower stems, and tears already traced paths down her cheeks. I know you have every right to slam the door in my face, Diane began, her voice breaking. I am Brett's mother. I am here to apologize and to explain, though I know nothing I say can undo the terror my son caused your daughter. Sophie's parents flanked their daughter protectively, but Sophie gestured for Mrs. Carson to sit down. Rachel, who had stayed for this visit, remained as a silent supporter. I need you to know that Brett has struggled with mental health issues since he was 14, Diane continued, settling into a chair. He developed an obsessive disorder, intrusive thoughts, and trouble understanding social boundaries. We got him treatment, therapy, medication. For a while, it seemed to work. But when he went to college, he stopped taking his medication. He convinced himself he was cured. That does not excuse stalking my daughter, Richard said firmly, though without hostility. You are absolutely right, Diane agreed immediately. It does not excuse anything. It explains, but it does not excuse. When the police called me last night, I broke down. I knew we had failed him by not staying on top of his treatment. But more importantly, we failed Sophie by allowing Brett to hurt someone else. She looked directly at Sophie. I am so sorry. I am so deeply sorry for what my son put you through. The room sat in heavy silence until Sophie spoke, her voice steady. Mrs. Carson, I appreciate you coming here. It takes courage to face the family your son hurt. But I need to know that Brett will get help this time. Real help. And that he understands what he did was wrong. He will get help, Diane promised. I have already been in contact with a treatment facility that specializes in behavioral disorders. Regardless of what the courts decide, Brett will receive intensive treatment. He needs to understand the impact of his actions, and he needs tools to manage his condition properly. Rachel leaned forward. Mrs. Carson, has Brett ever taken responsibility for the college incident? Does he understand he has a pattern of behavior? Diane's face crumpled. That is the problem. He has convinced himself that the college situation was a misunderstanding. He does not see himself as someone who hurts people. That disconnect between his actions and their impact is part of his disorder, but it is also the most dangerous part. He needs to face reality, and that is going to be painful for him. Tom Mitchell arrived at the Fletcher home, having been updated by Rachel via text. He joined the conversation with his characteristic calm authority. Mrs. Carson, I respect you coming here, Tom said. But here is what needs to happen. Brett needs to be held accountable legally. No special treatment because of his diagnosis. The courts can mandate treatment as part of his sentence. That is the path that will actually help him and protect future potential victims. I agree completely, Diane nodded. I am not here to ask for leniency or to make excuses. I am here to take responsibility as his mother for not ensuring he stayed in treatment. And I am here to ask how I can help make this right. Sophie looked at her parents, then at Rachel and Tom, before turning back to Diane. You can help by being honest with the police about Brett's history. You can help by supporting mental health awareness so other families catch warning signs earlier. And you can help by never minimizing what Brett did to me. I promise all of that, Diane said solemnly. And when this is all over, I want to start a foundation to help families navigate mental health treatment and to educate people about the warning signs of obsessive behavior. If I can prevent one other mother from sitting where I am right now, it will be worth it. Helen Fletcher, who had been silent, finally spoke. Mrs. Carson, we are not going to be friends. But I believe you are sincere. So here is what we will do. We will support you working with mental health professionals. We will not stand in the way of your efforts to help other families. But Brett stays away from Sophie permanently. Absolutely, Diane stood, clutching the flowers she had forgotten to put down. These were for Sophie. A small gesture, meaningless really, but I did not know what else to bring. Sophie accepted the flowers. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Carson. I hope Brett gets the help he needs. After Diane left, the Fletcher family sat in stunned silence until Tom spoke up. That woman is drowning in guilt, but she is using it the right way. She is turning it into action. Do you think Brett can change? Sophie asked quietly. I think with proper treatment and accountability, people can improve, Tom replied carefully. But that is not your responsibility, Sophie. Your responsibility is healing yourself and staying safe. Brett's journey is his own. Rachel squeezed Sophie's hand. You showed incredible grace just now. But remember, grace does not mean you have to forgive him or forget what happened. You can wish someone well from a very safe distance. 3 weeks after that terrifying night, Sophie sat in a circle of folding chairs at the Guardians Clubhouse on the outskirts of Nashville. Around her sat 5 other teenagers, all between 14 and 17, all with similar stories of feeling unsafe and unsupported. Rachel facilitated the group, creating a space where young people could share without judgment. This is our 3rd meeting of the Safe Youth Initiative, Rachel began. Today I want us to focus on recognizing our own strength. Sophie, would you mind starting? Sophie had been nervous about this moment, but something about the supportive faces around her made the words come easier. For a long time, I thought being scared meant I was weak. But Tom told me something that changed how I see it. He said feeling fear and asking for help is not weakness. It is survival. It is smart. A girl named Hannah Rodriguez nodded vigorously. My ex-boyfriend used to tell me I was paranoid when I said he was controlling. But I was not paranoid. I was right. The group shared stories, finding common threads, adults who did not listen, peers who said they were overreacting, and the moment they finally found support. Sophie realized her story was not unique, which was both heartbreaking and empowering. She was not alone, and neither were they. After the session, Sophie stayed to help Rachel clean up. The clubhouse, once intimidating to Sophie, now felt like a second home. The walls displayed photos of the Guardians at charity events, escorting abuse survivors, and participating in community projects. These tough-looking bikers had hearts of pure gold. Rachel, can I ask you something? Sophie folded a chair and leaned it against the wall. Why do the Guardians do all this? I mean, I know you are good people, but this seems like so much work. Rachel smiled, a distant look crossing her face. Tom founded the Guardians 20 years ago after his daughter was attacked walking home from school. She survived, but the trauma changed her life. He made a promise then that no kid would face danger alone if he could help it. The rest of us joined because we all have stories, Sophie. We all have moments where someone should have protected us but did not. This is how we make meaning from pain. At Hillside High, the changes were visible and meaningful. New posters lined the hallways with the Safe Ride Home hotline number. Principal Patterson personally walked through the school twice a day, making herself available to students. Teachers received training on recognizing signs of stalking and harassment. The culture shifted from dismissive to protective. Sophie's friends rallied around her, but more than that, they started speaking up about their own experiences. The girls' soccer team created a buddy system for walking to cars after practice. The drama club organized a fundraiser for the Guardians' youth programs. Hillside High was becoming a community that actually cared for its members. In her personal life, Sophie discovered a passion for helping others. She volunteered at the Guardians hotline under supervision, answering calls and connecting people with resources. Her parents, racked with guilt over their initial dismissal of her fears, threw themselves into supporting her new mission. Helen joined the Broadway Watch Committee, and Richard used his legal expertise to help draft better school safety policies. At dinner one evening, Richard set down his fork and looked at his daughter with pride mixed with regret. Sophie, I see how you have turned something horrible into something positive. But I need you to know that you did not have to be strong. You did not have to become an advocate. You were the victim, and you have every right to just focus on healing. I know, Dad, Sophie replied. But helping others actually helps me heal. When I see someone else find safety, it reminds me that what the Guardians did for me was real. It reminds me that good people exist. Helen wiped her eyes. We are so proud of you. And so grateful to Tom and Rachel and all the Guardians. They showed us what community really means. Tom visited regularly, checking on Sophie's well-being and updating the family on Brett's case. The legal process moved slowly but steadily. Brett was indicted on multiple counts of stalking. His lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but District Attorney Linda Morrison refused to budge. This case would go to trial. Are you ready for that? Tom asked Sophie gently during one visit. You would have to testify. Relive everything. Face him in court. Sophie took a deep breath. If my testimony means he gets treatment and cannot hurt anyone else, then yes. I am ready. Will you be there? Every single day of the trial, Tom promised. You would not be alone for 1 second. The courtroom in downtown Nashville felt cold despite the summer heat outside. Sophie sat in the witness box, her hands folded in her lap, Tom and Rachel sitting in the front row directly in her line of sight. Her parents sat beside them, and behind them, a dozen Guardians in their leather jackets formed a wall of support. To Sophie's left, Brett Carson sat at the defense table, his eyes downcast, looking nothing like the menacing figure from her nightmares. District Attorney Morrison approached with a gentle smile. Sophie, can you tell the jury what happened on the evening of May 15th? Sophie's voice started shaky but grew stronger as she recounted the chase, the terror, and the moment she saw the Guardians. She described weeks of escalating stalking, the screenshots of messages, and the way adults had minimized her fears. The jury listened with rapt attention, several members shaking their heads in sympathy. "How did you feel when you saw the motorcycle club?" D.A. Morrison asked. "Like God sent me angels," Sophie answered honestly. "I know that sounds dramatic, but that is exactly what it felt like. I was out of options, and they appeared exactly when I needed them most." The defense attorney, Marcus Webb, approached for cross-examination. His questions attempted to paint Brett as socially awkward rather than dangerous, suggesting Sophie had misinterpreted friendly interest. "Miss Fletcher, is it possible Brett simply did not understand you were uncomfortable?" Webb asked. Sophie's response was clear and firm. "I told him to leave me alone at least 20 times. I blocked him on every platform. I changed my route home. I reported him to school staff. A person who does not understand after 20 direct rejections is not awkward. They are choosing not to listen." The courtroom murmured in agreement, and Judge Patricia Reynolds gavelled for quiet. Tom caught Sophie's eye and gave her a subtle nod of approval. Brett's previous victim, Amanda Chen from his college, testified via video link from California. She described eerily similar behavior, the escalating messages, the unwanted following, and the way university officials failed to protect her. Her testimony established a pattern that the defense could not explain away. Officer Santos testified about finding Brett 2 blocks from where he chased Sophie, his car parked in a position suggesting he had been watching Bernie's diner even after Sophie found protection. Jake Peterson's video played for the jury, showing Brett clearly pursuing a terrified teenage girl through Nashville streets. The most impactful testimony came from Dr. Patricia Williams, a forensic psychologist who evaluated Brett. She explained his obsessive disorder, his inability to process rejection, and the danger he posed without proper treatment and accountability. "In my professional opinion, Mr. Carson's condition, left untreated and unaddressed, will lead to continued dangerous behavior," Dr. Williams stated. "He needs structured treatment with legal consequences, not sympathy and dismissal." Diane Carson testified for the prosecution, tears streaming down her face as she detailed her son's mental health history and her failure to ensure continued treatment. Her honesty stunned the courtroom. Rather than protecting her son from consequences, she advocated for exactly the accountability he needed. "I love my son," Diane said, looking directly at the jury. "But I love him enough to want him to get real help, even if it means he faces punishment. What he did to Sophie Fletcher and Amanda Chen was wrong. His disorder explains his behavior, but it does not excuse it." The defense called Brett to testify in his own defense against his lawyer's advice. Brett took the stand, and under D.A. Morrison's questioning, his lack of insight became painfully clear. He could not articulate why his behavior was wrong beyond acknowledging that it was illegal. "I just wanted to be friends with Sophie," Brett said, sounding genuinely confused. "I do not understand why she was so scared." "Did she tell you to leave her alone?" D.A. Morrison asked. "Yes, but I thought she was playing hard to get. I thought if I showed her how much I cared, she would change her mind." "Did you ever consider that no means no?" Brett paused, seemingly thinking about this for the first time. "I guess I thought I could change her no to a yes." That statement sealed his fate. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts: stalking, harassment, and violating a restraining order. Judge Reynolds set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Sophie and her family, but Tom and the guardians formed a protective barrier. Sophie gave a brief statement, her voice ringing with hard-won confidence. "Today, justice was served. I hope other young people who feel unsafe know they can ask for help. I hope adults listen when kids say they are scared. And I hope Brett gets the treatment he needs to never hurt anyone else." As cameras flashed, Rachel put an arm around Sophie's shoulders, and together they walked toward the motorcycles, surrounded by family both biological and chosen. 6 months after the trial, Sophie's 17th birthday arrived with unexpected sunshine and warmth. The Guardians Clubhouse transformed into a celebration space, with streamers in bright blue and green, tables laden with food from local businesses, and a cake from Carol's Diner decorated with a motorcycle design. Sophie walked in to thunderous applause from over 50 people. The Guardians, her classmates, teachers, Broadway Watch members, and community volunteers who had become family. Principal Patterson stood next to D.A. Morrison, both women who had fought for Sophie's safety after the system initially failed her. Speech, Mike Brennan called out, grinning. Sophie laughed, moving to the front of the room with Rachel by her side. A year ago, I was running for my life, terrified and alone. Today, I am surrounded by people who proved that good wins over evil when we choose to care for each other. The Guardians took a scared kid and made her part of a family. Tom stepped forward, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. Sophie, the Guardians want to give you a birthday gift. Inside this envelope is a full scholarship for your first year of college, wherever you choose to go. It is funded by anonymous donors who believe in you. Sophie's hands shook as she opened the envelope, her eyes widening at the amount. This is too much. I cannot accept this. You can and you will, Tom said firmly but kindly. You have spent 6 months volunteering with us, helping other kids find safety. You have earned this 20 times over. Besides, the donors specifically requested it go to you. They want to invest in your future. Helen and Richard stood with tears in their eyes. The scholarship represented not just money, but the community's faith in their daughter's potential. Sophie hugged Tom, then Rachel, then worked her way through the crowd, thanking everyone personally. Hannah Rodriguez and the other teens from the support group presented Sophie with a handmade scrapbook filled with photos and notes. Each page represented a moment from the past 6 months, Sophie answering hotline calls, speaking at school assemblies, and simply being present for others who felt unsafe. You showed us how to be brave, Hannah wrote in her note. Not fearless, just brave enough to ask for help. The celebration shifted into easy conversation and laughter. Carol Anderson cornered Sophie with a plate of food, insisting she eat. Officer Santos stopped by off-duty to wish Sophie well. Even Diane Carson sent a card, which Sophie read privately with Rachel. Brett is doing well in the treatment facility, the card read. He is starting to understand the impact of his actions. I have started the foundation we discussed, and our first scholarship for mental health treatment will be awarded in your name. Thank you for your grace, even when you did not owe it to us. Sophie showed the card to Rachel. Is it weird that I hope he really does get better? Not weird at all, Rachel assured her. Hoping someone heals does not mean you have to be part of their life. You can wish him well from your safe distance. As the party wound down, Tom gathered everyone for a final announcement. The Safe Youth Initiative has expanded to 3 Nashville high schools. We have received funding from the mayor's office to go citywide next year. We have answered over 200 calls on the Safe Ride Home hotline, and we have connected 50 families with resources. This started because Sophie was brave enough to run toward help instead of away from everyone. She changed our whole city. The room erupted in applause again, and Sophie felt something shift inside her. The fear that had defined her for months finally released its grip. She was not a victim anymore. She was a survivor, an advocate, and a young woman with a bright future ahead. Jake Peterson fired up music, and the Guardians taught Sophie to line dance, laughing as she stumbled through the steps. Her parents joined in, Helen kicking up her heels while Richard surprisingly showed some rhythm. The celebration represented more than a birthday. It represented a community healed through the simple act of showing up for one another. As the evening ended and guests departed, Sophie stood outside the clubhouse with Tom and Rachel, watching the sunset paint the Nashville sky in shades of orange and pink. Thank you, Sophie said simply, for everything, for believing me, for protecting me, for showing me what real family looks like. Thank you for trusting us, Tom replied. You gave us a chance to be the help we wish we had gotten when we needed it. That is a gift, Sophie. Rachel hugged Sophie tight. Happy birthday, kiddo. We are so proud of the woman you are becoming. 1 year after that terrifying night on Broadway Street, Sophie stood at a podium in Nashville Centennial Park, addressing a crowd of 300 people at the Community Safety Summit. The morning sun illuminated her bright green dress, and her voice carried confidence that would have seemed impossible a year ago. When I ran to those bikers outside Barney's Diner, I was not thinking about starting a movement. I was just trying to survive, Sophie began, scanning the crowd that included Mayor Patricia Green, Principal Patterson, Officer Santos, and dozens of guardians in their leather jackets. But what happened that night taught me something crucial. We survive because of each other. We thrive because of each other. And we heal because of each other. The crowd leaned in, hanging on her words. Sophie continued, sharing how the guardians' immediate action contrasted with weeks of adults telling her to wait, to gather evidence, to not overreact. She talked about the importance of believing people when they say they feel unsafe, about creating systems that protect rather than dismiss. The Safe Youth Initiative has helped over 500 young people in the past year, Sophie announced. The Broadway Watch expanded to 12 neighborhoods across Nashville. And Brett Carson is getting the treatment he needs while serving his sentence. All of this happened because Tom Mitchell and the Guardians chose kindness and action over indifference. Tom sat in the front row, visibly emotional, surrounded by his Guardian family. Rachel dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Carol Anderson from the diner beamed with pride. Diane Carson sat in the back, her newly established mental health foundation having funded several scholarships for families seeking treatment for loved ones. After Sophie's speech, Mayor Green presented the Guardians Motorcycle Club with the Mayor's Medal of Service, Nashville's highest civilian honor. Tom accepted it on behalf of the club, his weathered hands gripping the medal. "We do not do this work for recognition," Tom said, his voice gruff with emotion. "We do it because it is right. Because every Sophie out there deserves to feel safe. Because that is what communities are supposed to be, people watching out for each other, especially the vulnerable." The summit continued with workshops on safety, mental health awareness, and creating supportive environments. Sophie co-facilitated a session with Hannah Rodriguez, teaching young people how to recognize warning signs of stalking and where to find help. The session overflowed, with attendees sitting on the floor and standing along the walls. During lunch, Sophie found herself surrounded by people sharing their own stories, thanking her for speaking up and asking how they could volunteer. A woman named Patricia Miller approached with her 16-year-old daughter. "My daughter was dealing with something similar at her school in Memphis," Patricia explained. "After seeing news coverage of your case, we got help immediately. The school acted fast, and my daughter is safe now. You saved her by sharing your story." Sophie hugged the daughter, a girl with frightened eyes that was starting to clear. "You are going to be okay. Find your guardians, whoever they are. They are out there waiting to help." As the summit ended, the Guardians organized a community ride through Nashville, a parade of motorcycles with Sophie riding on the back of Tom's bike. They rode past Hillside High, past Bernie's Diner where Carol waved from the doorway, past the police station where Officer Santos stood at attention. The route ended at the Fletcher home, where Sophie's parents hosted a backyard barbecue for everyone who had been part of Sophie's journey. In the backyard, surrounded by the laughter of friends and chosen family, Sophie helped Rachel flip burgers while Mike set up speakers for music. Jennifer Hayes organized impromptu first aid demonstrations for curious kids. Jake Peterson taught anyone interested about motorcycle maintenance, his patient explanations drawing a crowd. Helen Fletcher pulled Sophie aside, away from the party for a moment. "Honey, your dad and I want you to know something. We have been attending therapy to deal with our guilt about not protecting you better initially. Our therapist helped us understand that while we made mistakes, you are not responsible for helping us feel better about those mistakes." "Mom, I know that." Sophie squeezed her mother's hand. "You have been amazing this past year. You learned and grew, just like I did. We are so proud of you," Helen's voice cracked. "And so grateful to the Guardians for seeing your worth immediately when we were too cautious to act. They are angels, truly." As evening approached and fairy lights twinkled in the backyard trees, Tom called for everyone's attention. "One more announcement before we eat. Sophie, you mentioned wanting to study social work in college. Well, the Guardians have established the Sophie Fletcher Scholarship Fund. Every year, we will award a full scholarship to a young person who has overcome adversity and wants to dedicate their life to helping others. You are the first recipient, but you would not be the last." Sophie's eyes filled with tears as the crowd applauded. She looked around at the faces that had become family, Tom and Rachel, who protected her, Carol, who provided a safe haven, Officers Santos and Cooper, who believed her, Principal Patterson, who reformed her school, Diane Carson, who chose accountability over excuses, Hannah and the support group members, who healed together, and her parents, who learned to trust their daughter's instincts. "I want to share something," Sophie said, standing on a chair so everyone could see her. "A year ago, I thought my life was ending. I thought Brett won. But he did not win. We won. Kindness won. Community won. Hope won. Love won. Every single person here represents what happens when we choose to care for each other over convenience or comfort." She paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm her words. "I am going to college in the fall to study social work. My goal is to create programs like the Safe Youth Initiative in cities across the country. I want every scared kid to find their Tom Mitchell, their Rachel Bennett, their guardian angels. And I promise to spend my life paying forward what you all gave me: safety, belief, and unconditional support." The backyard erupted in applause and cheers. Tom raised his glass of sweet tea in a toast. To Sophie, who ran toward help and changed a whole community. To second chances. To divine favor. And to the power of showing up for each other. To Sophie, everyone echoed, glasses clinking. As the party continued into the night, Sophie sat on the back porch steps next to Rachel, watching the Guardians teach her friends to line dance. The music and laughter filled the warm Tennessee air with joy that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "You did good, kid," Rachel said softly. "You took the worst night of your life and turned it into hope for thousands of people." "I had good teachers," Sophie leaned her head on Rachel's shoulder. "You and Tom showed me what it means to be brave. Not fearless, just brave enough to help others even when it is hard." "That is all any of us can do," Rachel replied. "Show up. Believe people. Take action. The rest works itself out." Sophie looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, feeling something she had not felt in a long time: complete peace. The stalker who haunted her nightmares was getting help and serving his sentence. The community that failed her initially had transformed into her greatest support system. The fear that nearly broke her had been replaced with purpose and passion. She was safe. She was loved. She was home. And she was just getting started.